I'm not ashamed.
Who was Jesus? This is the question that we seek to answer today as we continue our verse-by-verse study of the book of Matthew on walking through the Bible.
Wonders of his word, the glory of his cross.
If you have a Bible with you, you can turn to Matthew chapter 16. We're going to be reading from verses 13 to 20. If you don't have a Bible, don't worry. Just follow along with us on the screen. The version that we'll be reading from is the New King James Version. So, Matthew chapter 16, beginning at verse 13. When Jesus came into the region of Caesarea Philippi, he asked his disciples, saying, Who do men say that I, the Son of Man, am? So they said, Some say John the Baptist, some Elijah, and others Jeremiah or one of the prophets. He said to them, But who do you say that I am? Simon Peter answered and said, You are the Christ, the Son of the living God. Jesus answered and said to him, Blessed are you, Simon Bar-Jonah, for flesh and blood has not revealed this to you, but my Father who is in heaven. And I also say to you that you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades shall not prevail against it. And I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven, and whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven. Then he commanded his disciples that they should tell no one that he was Jesus, the Christ. According to our last episode, Jesus and the disciples crossed again to the east side of the Sea of Galilee. In today's reading, we find that they come to the region of Caesarea Philippi. In Palestine, there were two Caesareas, one that borders the coast of the Mediterranean, and this one. This city is distinguished from the other by adding Philippi to the end, named after Philip the Tetrarch, one of the sons of Herod the Great. It is located near the base of Mount Hermon, an important point to what we will discuss in a few moments. While near Caesarea Philippi, he asked his disciples, Who do men say that I, the Son of Man, am? That Jesus used the phrase Son of Man is a direct reference to the Messiah in places like Daniel 7, verses 13 and 14, which read, I was watching in the night visions, and behold, one like the Son of Man coming with the clouds of heaven. He came to the Ancient of Days, and they brought him near before him. Then to him was given dominion and glory and a kingdom, that all peoples, nations, and language should serve him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion, which shall not pass away, and his kingdom the one which shall not be destroyed. So in using the phrase Son of Man, he was not simply saying that he was a Son of Man, for that phrase could describe anybody. He was saying that he was the Son of Man, the one who will be given the everlasting kingdom, one that would not pass away. The disciples' response was that some people say that you're John the Baptist. If you recall, Herod believed that Jesus was the resurrected John the Baptist, so it is likely that others believe this too. Some said that Jesus was Elijah, the prophet that the Old Testament said would be the forerunner to the Messiah. We've already discussed how John the Baptist was that prophet, for he came in the spirit of Elijah. Others said that Jesus was Jeremiah. Jeremiah was known as the weeping prophet, one who lamented over the condition of Israel, and we've seen so far in this book how Jesus laments over the condition of Israel and the desire for them to turn back to God. Others said that he was one of the prophets, but did not name which one. These were the opinions of the people, all who had seen the miracles that had been done by Jesus and heard his teachings. He then asked the disciples, But who do you say that I am? The people had heard the teachings of Jesus largely in parables, but the disciples had heard much more in private. Peter, who usually was the most outspoken of the apostles, said that you are the Christ, the Son of the living God. In other words, God himself. Jesus answered that he was correct, and then told Peter that flesh and blood, men, had not revealed that to you, but the Father who is in heaven. Had God the Father whispered the correct answer in Peter's ear? No, that's not what Jesus is saying. If you recall back in Matthew 11:27, Jesus said, No one knows the Son except the Father, nor does anyone know the Father except the Son, and the one to whom the Son wills to reveal him. Peter had been around Jesus for probably around 2 to 2.5 years. He had heard the words of Jesus, which were the words of the Father, and so he was able to make this confession based on what he had heard and what he believed. Jesus went on to say, You are Peter, and upon this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades will not prevail against it. Roman Catholics use this verse to teach that Peter was the first pope, but again, that's not what Jesus said. The name Peter means stone, and with the backdrop of Mount Hermon behind him, a large mountain, he said, On this rock, the confession that Jesus is the Christ, the King of the everlasting kingdom, his church would be built. And the fact that Jesus would die would not stop that. He would give Peter and the rest of the apostles, according to the context, the keys of the kingdom, which is the gospel, the message that would allow people to enter the kingdom. The New American Standard translates this part the best by saying, "Whatever you bind on earth shall have been bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth shall have been loosed in heaven." The apostles did not make law for God. They revealed God's law to the people. Even Paul said so in 1 Corinthians 14:37. Because Jesus' hour was not yet, and because the people had already tried to make him a king by force, he told the disciples not to reveal this fact as of yet. They would do so, however, once the kingdom begins in the book of Acts. With that, our time is up for today. Lord willing, we hope you'll join us for tomorrow's discussion of Matthew 16, verses 21 to 28, as we continue our walk through the Bible, one verse at a time.
I'm not a
Thank you for watching today's episode. We hope that you found it edifying and ask that you not only subscribe to our channel and podcast, but that you like and share this episode among your friends, so that the saving gospel of Jesus Christ can go out to the whole world.
of his cross.